Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight, especially when it's an off night. It's not our regular Thursday. Let's go check the chat real quick, see who we got in here. Poor Decisions Pairing, cheers. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tracy, always good to see you. Sandy, cheers. Thanks for coming on. David, no black hat, no black JD hat. Not this time, David. Good guess, though. Alicia, thanks for joining us. JD, I hope you're enjoying that winning from last week. Renee, thank you. Brad, thanks for coming along. Patrick, good to see you. Sonda, cheers. Dean, cheers. Thanks for joining. Paul, that bourbon guy, thanks for joining tonight. Trenton, good to see you again. Pete, cheers. Tom Black. So we have a pretty good amount of people in chat. All right, so tonight I have a special guest. I have David Souza from Corbin Cash Distillery. He is the owner and the master distiller, and he is going to be joining us talking about his whiskey. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Hi, David.
How you doing? Thanks
good.
for having me.
How are you?
Good. It's having a good day. Weather's great.
Good. That's good to hear.
Cool here and nice and cool here. When in California, our weather patterns are finally starting to cool off and relieving us of the 105-degree days.
Oh my gosh! I thought we had it bad here. It was 85 earlier this week.
Yeah.
But, last couple of days we've had some torrential rain, though, it seems.
Yeah, we'll start getting we've had a tad of sprinkles here and there, but normally we don't get our rain till later November, December. So we're still in full harvest right now on the farm till the end of October, early November. So
so you get your rain when we get our snow.
Yeah. We don't get snow here, thankfully.
Maybe we can send you some your way and we can get less of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's which is kind of why our aging climate here is for whiskey is a lot different than most places. It's just we get that year-round aging climate.
Yeah. So what's your average temperature there? Like you're kind of just average for the year.
So it's I would say on average you're probably in the I don't even know how to average it. I would say June through September, our average temperature is over 90 degrees, but hit spikes of 110 to 115. And then, winter time, we can get down in the winter. We can get down in the 30s, but it'll be in the evenings, but our days can be 65 to 70, depending on, if we have any fog or not. If we don't have any fog, tends to warm up a little bit, but if we get foggy days, it can stay in that 50, like kind of muggy, a little bit humid, but we don't have as much fog as we used to back like we did in the 80s and early 90s. So It's definitely got more of a drier climate.
So a lot of people here, I was talking to you before we started on the live. Corbin Cash is not in Ohio. I don't even know if you're anywhere really out east. So
other than single barrel sales, no. Like we have some online like retailers out of Washington D.C., but as far as actual distribution states, we're not.
So a lot of the people watching, a lot of my people over here in the like kind of the Midwest and East Coast may not be real familiar with your product. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of, how you got started and what you're all about?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm David Souza. I'm a fourth generation farmer here in California. My great grandfather immigrated from Portugal back in 1917 from the Azore Islands, and he started farming sweet potatoes and rye back in 1917. And then, as time went on, diversified into other crops. My grandfather, the second generation, he expanded us into, corn and almonds and watermelons and the dairy business. So over the 108 years we've been farming, we've farmed many different things. but our staples have always been sweet potatoes, rye, oats, things like that. And, growing up, my dad and I were pretty close in age. My parents had me at probably in their late teens, 17, 16, 17. And so grew up working on the farm. By the time I was in my 20s, I'd been doing it for so long and farming on my own, I thought I should be running the farm. And my dad and I didn't see that. Because he's in his 40s, and I laugh about it now, but he was in his 40s and which is younger than I am now, funny. But so I decided, like, okay, well, I want to try to figure out and put my own stamp on the family business. And so I had invested in some restaurants, and I had invested in I had a few different businesses besides the farm. And then, some older gentlemen, in my late 20s, early 30s, taught me how to drink good booze. Growing up here in the valley where we are, we grew up on Jack Number 7 and Jim Beam and, SoCo and Coke. Like, we didn't really drink straight anything because we were privy to that realm. And so I spent a lot of time traveling and in my travels. And I had businesses, I had the restaurants were in Las Vegas. I had some gentlemen teach me how to drink really good whiskey and good vodkas and good gins. And so I went from like a partier to like a connoisseur, and it just kind of struck a note with me as like, man, these are really good. I never appreciated booze before that. And so it really opened up my mind to maybe I can make something from the crops that we grow that we're, we have these extra sweet potatoes we're throwing away. We have this rye that we don't really do anything with. It's just a cover crop. So I bought a book off the internet. I made a still, and that was 2007. And I started distilling sweet potatoes and rye in my garage. And it took me about 1.5 years to come up with the recipes that we use today. And then in 2009, I got the license to build out the distillery. And then we launched into the market in 2010. And so it's definitely been a big learning curve from not going, like having a formal education on distilling and having to learn everything the hard way through trial and error.
Internet's a great thing. I guess you can learn anything on it if you look hard enough, right?
Yeah. And, and then the internet wasn't real huge. There was some information, but it was mostly just beer recipes. So it was really just, and there was nobody really distilling sweet potatoes in America. So it was really, the vodka side of it was real challenging. And then, obviously most people in the whiskey world know 100% rye is challenging to work with. Well, I had no idea what I was getting myself into until later, but as challenging it was, I was pretty excited with what we came up with. And so that's been one of our number one sellers now is our rye whiskey. It's definitely been, so it was definitely a challenge, still a challenging business, but I love it. I really became from a connoisseur to really being passionate about just making whiskey in the community. And it's just been, it's been something that I would have never, if you'd asked me 25 years ago, I'd be making whiskey, I would have laughed. I'm like, I don't even really like whiskey. And now I love it. So Tracy. So the brand's named after Corbin Cash is my son. So he is the 5th generation. Oh. So that's where the name Corbin's his first name, Cash is his middle name. So
I was wondering where that name, like, how does that, because you're not, at first I thought, well, maybe that's where, the distillery is, like the name of the spring, the town or something, but no, that wasn't the case.
So it's my son. So he, our last name being Souza, very much like the tequila, which is trademarked by Jim Beam. We couldn't use our last name. And so I'm like, well, my son, I named my son after 2 country singers, and I'm like, sounds like a cool whiskey name. So that's what we named it after.
Nice. Tracy says she's got 3 single barrels of your Merced rye that are picks, and they're all fantastic. So,
glad to hear that. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah,
now, we've got a question here from Paul, one of my regulars. He asks, "What's Merced rye compared to malted or other ryes? What's the difference between Merced and other ryes?"
Yeah, so Merced is, we're from the town of Merced County, we're in Atwater, but Merced County. The rye isn't actually named after our town. At least we don't think so, but it's Merced rye is the actual varietal. And what makes it different than most ryes on the market is it's a very drought tolerant rye. So if you've ever seen you guys are all in the Midwest, right? You see a rye.
Yeah.
The rye there grows, 3.5, 4 feet tall. It's, kind of a little bushier. It's got big fat heads on it. Our rye, Merced rye, actually grows 6.5 feet tall to 7. It's super spindly, and it's the heads are really small because it's so tall. The seeds are real tiny. So my great grandfather started planting this rye back in the day just for weed control and dust control. So he learned early on, 1917, this is a real sandy soil where we were at. And when the wind blows, it's just like a dust storm. So he started planting the Merced rye to control that dust in the winter and work as a winterized crop. But we never harvested for anything because the starch content compared to a Midwestern rye, Midwestern rye give you 65 to 70% starch. Merced rye on a good year is about 57% starch. So it's really low in starch. It's not great for making bread. So really was just a cover crop for 90 years for us. And then, but what we learned later on, he always told us that the fields did better. The sweet potato fields always did better where the rye was. And the reason we figured out later on, like in the early 90s, we were out there digging with a backhoe and fixing a pipeline. And the Merced rye root system actually goes down 13.5 feet.
True.
And it mines all of that excess nitrogen and potash that would surpass the sweet potato roots that we would put on, which would normally just slither down into our drinking water. The Merced rye roots go down 13.5 feet and mine all that nutrients back to the surface. And then when we would disc it back in, it would strengthen the ground. And so that was the cycle that he was doing for many years that, had no idea what was happening. He was, being sustainable before sustainable was really the thing. So that Merced rye it's a totally different grain genetically from most ryes on the market. And it's probably not ideal to purchase to make whiskey, but because we have it and we farm, 1,000 acres of it, it just made sense for me.
Okay. Guys, I just want to say, David, Donald, thank you for the super chats. And we are still doing our bags tonight. We do a little game every week. We kind of do a raffle. People who send in super chats, somebody gets a chance to win and play a little gambling game with our bags.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah, just let everybody know you want to send the super chats, and you can get in for the challenge tonight. So, what's the difference like with your climate there to like we're used to here, like Kentucky? And we compared Texas, the way the whiskey ages there, it ages super fast and gets hot. And Kentucky's considered kind of that perfect climate for aging whiskey. What's it like there with like the way your temperature works?
I always tell people the only worst place to age whiskey versus here is Texas. So we have a very similar temperature, I would say. The difference is we don't have the humidity that Texas does. So we have this really dry heat, which is, I don't know if some of those barrels like Tracy mentioned, if any of those were hazmat barrels, but we get it. Like we can reach hazmat barrels pretty easily depending on what proof we lay the whiskeys down at. But so imagine we don't age any whiskey barrels higher than, 16 to 20 feet max, because we're so hot. Like our rick house here will, on those 115-degree days, they're just metal buildings, no insulation. It can get 135 to 140 degrees in there. And so we do see a lot of angel share.
Okay.
But the good thing for us is we lose water typically before we lose the alcohol, because we don't have the humidity. So our proofs tend to go up.
We love hazmat. We love hazmat bottles. So
And so for us, it's the challenge with that is also, over the years, I've had to learn to adjust our cooperages to build custom barrels for this heat. What I learned early on was, after I was trying to get 6 and 7 and 8-year-old whiskey, not temperature controlling, we were starting to see a little bit of bitiness in the whiskey. And so our first 6-year-old barrel, I wasn't real pleased with it. So we had a few barrels that had hit 6. I felt like there was a little bit of a bite to it. So I took the barrel apart, and what we figured out was that we were so hot in the summer that the whiskey was surpassing the char, going into the raw wood and bringing those tannins.
You're getting the tannins out of the wood then.
Back into the whiskey. And then, after 6-7 years, that charcoal, which is typically a filter, it's kind of spent. Like there's not a lot of leeway for filtration to take those tannins away. So, and when you think about Kentucky weather, you get 6 months of warm and then you get 6 months of cold. So you get a balance
cycle. You got a balanced cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. You got a balanced cycle. And so when you think about, a 5-year-old whiskey here is aging all the time. It's probably more realistically to Kentucky. It's more like an 8-year-old versus a 5-year-old. So what and then as we started to see our 8 and 9 year, and now we're going to be releasing a 12-year-old whiskey this year. Some of these barrels that we had built in, like ISC or Kelvin out of, back east, these barrels, which are typically great for aging whiskey, in our heat, they'll leak like a sieve, because the whiskey oak, you want it to be a little more porous, right? You want it to go in and out.
Right.
So what we did is we had to tailor some of our barrels and get more expensive oak, denser oak, and custom make our barrels so that we don't have that huge leakage out of the barrels, especially when we're going to go, if I know I'm going to lay these down for 10 years, I want to have and so what we do is we go with a little denser, better grade oak. We season it for 3 years, and then we'll slap a number 5 char on that.
Nice. So we got a question here from Pete. He wants to know which grains are easiest and hardest to grow, and which ones are the most cost-effective, highest or lowest cost grains.
So I'd say corn is the easiest to grow and the cheapest. And then rye is probably one of the hardest. And I would say it's probably a little more expensive just because it typically doesn't produce as much. So when you look at a per acre basis for cost, the yield on rye is typically going to be lower than wheat, barley. But then if you're talking about malting grains, then malted, once you start malting stuff, then it gets more expensive because you have more stuff into it. But I'd say, but if you're just talking about raw grains, corn definitely by far is the easiest. And rye is definitely probably the hardest and most expensive, at least out here in California.
And that's why I think generally when you're looking at bottles, you see like a bourbon with corn, high corn is a little bit cheaper on the average than the average rye bottle, which is more expensive.
Well, and to give you an example, so if we make a same batch size, right? So if I make a batch of bourbon and I make a batch of rye and we start with the same exact amount of grain, or say corn whiskey. Say I'm 100% corn and 100% rye. So in that batch, to give you an example, I might get 280 gallons, proof gallons of corn whiskey. And in that same batch of rye, I'll get 220 gallons. So 60 proof gallons difference, anywhere from 40 to 60 proof gallons difference between the rye and the corn. So just from that perspective, you can see why.
So Paul's asking, with the warmer climate, wouldn't you prefer to have a lower char or like a toasted barrel?
Normally, that would be ideal. The problem is if you want, with the denser wood, if we go with a dense wood, it won't go in the wood as far. So the reason we number 5 char it is to break into that denser wood and to open it up. But what we open it up inside, but it's still dense 3 layers in. So my whiskey won't go past that layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you got a deeper char to keep it from getting into the wood to suck out those tannins that
yeah. So we get the denser wood to keep it from going outside the barrel, but then we char it heavier so we can get the flavor profile, and it won't over oak because it can't go into the wood that far. But it's taken years to figure this out, and it's not always perfect, but it's one of the things that we're in wine country. So we have access to really high quality wine barrels. And so I watched what a lot of these wine guys, because wine does not want to penetrate the barrel. They just want to get a slight little oak flavor. So working with wineries and understanding what they do, and then blending that with our climate to understand it, like, to make our whiskeys unique. It's been, it's definitely an ever-changing challenge.
Patrick asked, do you use column still or pot still? Do you produce all year round, or do you take some of the summer months off?
Good question. I just had that conversation with somebody. So we use a pot column. So we use a hybrid still. So we have a, matter of fact, I can probably show it to you. I'm in the distillery right now.
Oh, there we go. We get a little tour, guys.
So, well, I'm going to drop my iPad here. So we have that's our pot. And then there's a column. See it on the other side there. So it is a pot still with a column on the side. And so what that helps us do is, instead of having to redistill things multiple times, like Irish whiskey and stuff like that.
Right, where it's triple distilled in the pot.
Triple
and stuff
distilled.
like that,
We are able to control it with one distillation and still leave a lot of great flavor profile, but have more control on that still, where I can bring it off at a consistent, 135 to 140 proof, still with a really clean flavor profile, so it doesn't have to be distilled multiple times, and retain enough flavor to make the whiskey still really tasty.
Nice. David says that's the first char 5 he's ever heard of with your barrels. He's got to find some of these bottles. Is there a way that people like here, like in Ohio, is there a place we can go to order them or to try and find them online? I mean, do you have
there's I can send you some links after. So we just had a breakthrough in California, supposed to be our most progressive state, and we haven't had a rule change since Prohibition, I don't think. But we just got our tasting room license when we were able to get that a few years ago. That was the first rule change since Prohibition in California. And so now that we have a tasting room, during COVID, they gave us shipping privileges. And so it was only shipping within state. But what we just found out is the governor signed a bill that's Granholm compliant, which we're going to be able to ship out of California now.
that'd be good.
There's only a few states to start, but we do have some online retailers who ship all over the country, and a couple of those are out of Washington, D.C. So I can I can't think of the websites offhand, but I can email you those, and then if you want to send them out to your Patreons later.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. If you give me those links, I'll put them out there. Guys, we are doing our Whiskey Sippers Dilemma tonight. So if you want a chance to pick a bag, every $5 in Super Chat, you get an entry into the raffle. So you sent me some samples here, and I love talking, but I want to get into drinking some whiskey.
Yeah.
So which one would you like me to start with? The rye or your sour mash?
I say start with the sour mash because you got the rye is definitely a spicier bomb in your mouth versus the bourbon. So I say start, and it's a lower proof. So the sour mash coming in at 106, and then Merced rye is at 123.
Yeah, so guys, it is a 4-year-old sour mash bourbon at 106 proof. So I always like to fresh crack by my microphone. I'm told that it has a pretty good sound. So there we go.
So, and this is made, so this is like a kind of our take on Kentucky style sour mash. So this is made with our local white sweet corn. So it's a 70% white corn with 25% Merced rye and a 5% malted barley.
Okay. Tracy asked, how hard is it to do a barrel pick with Corbin Cash, and what options do you have? Like you can select from bourbons, ryes. What's the?
So yeah, right now it's not. We are a little backed up. We have a huge line, but it's not difficult. I guess it just depends where you're located. So, and who you're using to take the barrel in. You know, if you're a whiskey club or a, Patreon group, it really depends on what states. Because like we've had people do picks in Utah, and like the state of Utah is just you can't even deal with them. Their margins are so massive. So we have to find people to be able to move those barrels. So it's, we have people reach out and we try to work with whoever we can. We don't oversaturate the market. So I usually limit it to, 2 or 3 picks per state per year, just so, we want everybody to be able to experience it and not saturate the market. It's not super difficult, but there is a backlog right now because we were out of glass for about 4 months. So we're catching up on all that bottling.
Patrick says he lives a couple of hours north of you, and they're in their most grocery stores there. So that's good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it sounds like yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. I definitely get the sweet corn on the nose. It almost reminds me almost like a like there's an apple or something in there. Kind of, I'm getting a little bit of apple, like green apple. All right. Cheers. I definitely get that green apple on the palate too. And that doesn't drink anywhere near 106 proof. This is my first drink of the day, and I would have never thought that was over 100 proof. It's like green apple and toffee.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting. That's like a little fruity and a little sweet. That's good.
So what's funny is a lot of people taste a lot of fruit notes in our whiskeys. And so when we talk about terroir and, wine, well, if you come to the distillery, we have different bottles to taste against others. And we could definitely show you how terroir makes a difference in whiskey. And because of the sweet potato alcohol that we make, we figured out that the sweet potatoes in general just have a lot of apple notes like apple spice notes. They have like more like apricot and butterscotch. And because our rye fields grow and after these sweet potatoes, where there might be, thousands of pounds of sweet potatoes left on the field, the rye also picks up some of those notes. And so this doesn't have any sweet potato alcohol in it, but it has that rye, 25% rye, which I think adds to that, those apple notes you're talking about.
Yeah, it's definitely got that that apple and a little bit of like toffee sweetness.
Yeah,
that's different. That's different. It's pretty
Yeah.
good. So guys, I got a list of questions here. So let's play 20 questions with David. Guys, throw out a number, and I'll pick a random question here, and we'll ask him. So somebody throw out a number. Let's see what kind of question he gets. Oh. Anyone? 1 through 27. Okay. I think we've already asked that one. We asked about barrels. Try another one. 3. There we go. Okay, that's a good question. So when you were first getting started, was there a moment or something that happened that almost made you give up? Was there something like a hardship you ran into that almost made you quit the whole process?
Not in the beginning, but there's definitely been moments later on that was like, I'm pretty driven. I don't quit anything. Like, I'm pretty stubborn, but actually in the beginning I was having a lot of fun and it was interesting, and I was, I had this newfound passion. I think honestly, I would say probably right before COVID, I would say 2018 to 2020. But right before COVID hit, there was a point there where I was really frustrated. Distribution has been very challenging for us.
Man, the whole 3-tier system's a nightmare.
And that's really been the thing that's been challenging, is people wanting our whiskeys can't get the whiskeys, or the distributor overprices them, or there's always something that's beyond our control. And so that moment between 2018, I had Bevmo out here in California was our biggest customer, and they almost went belly up and they kicked all the craft brands out. And so I lost my biggest customer, and that I spent years building, and we had to do a pivot, and the pivot was our tasting room. And it didn't replace the Bevmo business, but it definitely helped. And it gave me a newfound passion to see people here coming that I actually get to deal with on a regular basis and talk to them. And then COVID created the whiskey tube. And this is like these moments have been revitalized my like love for what happened, because it's like, as much as I love making whiskey, drinking it by yourself's no fun. Like, you want to share it.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So I wouldn't say in the beginning. It was about 10 years into it. It was like, damn, should I just give this up? Like, I'm never going to get anywhere with this.
Pete picked another one, and this is a good question. This is what I wanted to ask. What is one bottle from another distillery that you secretly love?
I would say this baby right here. So I have a Glens Creek OCD number 5. This was a pick. I never heard of these guys before, and I wouldn't say I'm a huge Scotch fan, but I am a huge Mezcal fan, and I've definitely have enjoyed my Scotches and learning, and I'm getting more into like the deeper like Lafroigs and stuff that was never a big fan of, but this has a smokiness to it that reminds me of, like, it's just a damn good bourbon with like the smoke of a Mezcal. And I don't know how they did it, but it's like, I had a guy give me a bottle because he heard me talking about it on another podcast. And he came to a show and he's like, hey, I brought you another bottle of that because I don't like this stuff, but I know you do. And so he actually brought me another bottle of it.
Yeah,
But,
I'm not a Scotch fan, and I've had the OCD, and I didn't particularly like it either. But I can
yeah,
see where you're coming from with that. What you're
I
talking
guess because
about.
it's just this newfound love for mezcal, and there's just something about this bottle I go to sipping on it, and it's just takes me into a different realm.
Okay. Yeah, Paul said buy some ducks, guys. We are doing the Whiskey Sippers Dilemma. So every $5, you'll get a chance in the race. I have another question I also thought was a good one. Let me find it here. If you could have one master distiller try your rye, what master distiller would you want it to be?
Well, it did happen.
Okay, well, that's gotta be a good story.
It was Dave Pickerell, actually, from Maker's Mark, and obviously behind Whistle Pig. And it was funny, like we were at a show down here in California, and I was off talking with other distiller and brand owners and stuff, and tasting other whiskey, and my person that was working the table calls me and said, hey, there's a guy here that wants to talk to you. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm busy. And they're like, no, you need to come now. And I'm like, why? And they're like, it's the guy. And I'm like, what guy? And they didn't know his name. And they're like, the guy from Maker's Mark. And I'm like, Maker's Mark? And he'd already been on his own at this point. And so I go over there, and it's Dave Pickerell. And he's like, I love your rye. Like, what's this Merced rye? I want to know about it. And we talked, and he is just, he gave me a lot of encouragement and to keep going. He's like, dude, you got something special here. You need to just keep doing it. I know it's tough business, but keep doing what you're doing. And this is at this point, he's only tasting our 5-year-old. We didn't have a lot of old stuff at that time. And then
that had to feel great. I mean, that had to feel great to get that kind of encouragement. Yeah,
it did. And then I met him a couple more times after that, and it sucks, but I was, the night before he died, I was at a tasting with him, and I had talked to him. I'm like, man, I want you to come out. Like, I want to get some pointers from you, because I think there's, I'm not I didn't study to do this like he did. So I go, I'm sure there's things I'm not, obviously. There's always something you can learn that maybe I'm doing in my process that's, maybe I can be better at. And but I never got the chance because he passed away. But he did sign 2 bottles that night, and so they're up on my bar, and they'll never be opened.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Tracy and Dean, I did get your Venmo entries into the race, and Crafty, thank you. I just got yours. Paul picked number 14, and that's another good question. What's the wildest or funniest story that's happened during a tasting or in your tasting room, or during a barrel pick at the distillery?
The wildest thing, I think, I would say the 1917, the one you haven't opened yet, the reason we have that is, which was, kind of what is because we used to do a lot of farm tours in the beginning. And the women who would come out with their husbands were like, I started, as we'd get to the end of the farm tour, everybody gets to go to the barrel room and do a barrel tasting. And we're tasting these barrels straight out of the barrel. And the wives were so adamant, who some of them were not even real whiskey drinkers. They're like, how do we buy this? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, right out of the barrel. Like, this is what we want. And we weren't making a cash strength at the time. Like, we were just making 90 proof and whatever. And it was like, these women were like, no, like, I want to buy this. And I'm going, like, and they're very adamant. And I'm like, I'm kind of joking it off. And then we get back to the distillery, and they're like, no, like, how do we buy this? And I'm like, you know what? I was like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah. So we bottled up a small batch and they loved it and shared it, and people were calling. And then it was like 1917 was born right after that.
Nice.
It was like these, and it was, you know, all the men always want this, but these women were so adamant. It was kind of like, whoa, this is weird. Like, usually the men are like, oh yeah, the higher the proof, but they were enjoying this. And like I said, a few of them were not real whiskey drinkers, and they were really just kind of getting into it, and they were just like, this is delicious. And it kind of happened.
I was trying to get my wife into bourbon, and I kept giving her, I have pours every night. She, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. The one she finally liked was 131 proof, barrel proof Old Forester. That's the first one she had. She's like, yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, right. And so, and we see that in our tasting room now. It's like with the hazmats, and people come in and they taste them and they're like, holy mackerel, that doesn't drink like 147 proof. Like, but you know as well as I do, that's where the flavor's at. It's high.
Right. So, yep.
But those flavors are just intense, and you just don't get
Yeah,
the same thing out of a 90 proof.
Right. You haven't cut it down. That flavors are all complex,
Yeah.
and they're all right there.
Yeah.
We have a question here. It says, industry question. Have you ever used LibDib for a distributor? If so, what has been your experience?
So we haven't used LibDib for ourselves. I do custom distilling for a few brands, and some of them have used LibDib, and it's been mixed reviews. I think for what they do, it's a good service. I think the challenge that is I've seen with it is sometimes is their ordering process from the distillery. You know, if they're ordering only a case or 2 cases or whatever they're ordering, their small batch ordering is a pain in the butt on our end of it. But I think once it's in their warehouse and their distribution, it seems like my customers have been pretty happy with it. You know, they don't offer a sales force or anything, but if you have your own self on the ground, but I think for moving product, especially like single barrel or niche, if you need to move it into a market to test it, it's been great. They've used it for that service as well. So I think it's, you know, every distribution has its great things and its terrible things. And I think it's just, there's no one with the 3-tier system, there's just no one good answer for it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think each distribution model has its benefits. It's just different, you know.
So I want to get into this Merced rye. I love rye whiskey, so I've been excited to try this one for sure. 123 proof. Now, what is this? Is this 4? How old is the Merced?
No, Merced rye is a minimum of 5.5 years. So
5.5.
That's going to be a blend of 5.5, but never more than 7. But particularly, its majority is always we try to keep it at that 5.5. That 1917 is the year we started farming, and really the sweet spot for that proof is 5.25 years. So my goal is not to dilute the whiskey. So that whiskey it's barrel proof. It's not, oh, it's 128 and we dilute it to 123. I try to pick barrels that are at 123 proof. And what we used to see in the beginning was that at 5 years old, you know, when we did everything on the ground, like I didn't have a lot of barrels. It was like 1 or 2, maybe 3 barrels high. All the whiskey at 5.5, 5.25, really 5.25 years was at 123 proof. But as we've gotten bigger and we've had to stack the barrels higher, we now see that we can have 5-year-old whiskey that's at 128 proof or even close to 130 if it's at the top of the rick house. So we really have to source these barrels from the bottom level of the rick house at that 5-year mark. Because as I just said earlier, I don't want to dilute the whiskey if I don't have to. Like it's, you know, the sweet spot for this one is why people loved it where it is at is because you don't want to tone it down. You just want to have it where it's at. So We pick specific barrels for that.
All right, we'll go ahead and fresh crack this. I'm going to give this a try.
So this is 100% Merced rye. There's no other grains in it.
So do you malt some of the rye to get the, or do you throw in enzymes like amylase enzymes or something?
Yeah, we use all enzymes. So yeah, we don't malt anything in house.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering when I saw it was 100%. I was wondering if maybe you malt some of it because you got to get that reaction to break down the those sugars.
Yeah, and the reason we did, I didn't have a way to malt anything back when I started, and then the added cost to ship it off, have it malted, was more of a pain. But the enzymes that we use with 100% rye is also challenging. So we need to make sure that the proteins are broke down properly and they don't bind, because otherwise it's happened to me. You can turn a batch of rye into peanut butter really quickly.
Ooh. Yeah, it gets thick. The rye can get really thick when you're trying to mash it.
Yeah, for sure. I've stuck a tank and had to shovel it out. It took 3 days.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
And it's so sticky. It is. It's like being in molasses. It's so thick.
It's like, it literally was like I had to suck all the water off the top of the tank because it quit moving, and then get in there, and it was like trying to shovel peanut butter. Like it was just like, ugh. And I didn't want it. It was so hot because we were cooking it, and it literally stuck the mixer. So I didn't want to send my crew in there. So I got in the tank, and it's like you have this, 180 degree peanut butter that you're trying to shovel out. Oh, what a nightmare.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try here. So this one's fruity on the nose too.
Yeah. You get a little more fruit of those fruit notes from the sweet potato ground.
It's almost like a berry. So it's got some of the typical herbalness on a lot of ryes, but there's that fruitiness right behind it. And it definitely does not drink 123 proof. Not even close. I mean, it does not have, there's like the ethanol is just not there that you would sometimes expect on a higher proof rye. Yeah, I like that. I like that one a lot. It's almost a touch of mint on the finish. Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. I would be very interested in getting a single barrel of this. For sure. That's good.
They get more, the older they get a little more away from you'll get a sweetness to it, but not as much fruit note. Like you taste it when it's a little bit younger, you get a little bit more of those fruit, a little bit fruitiness. And then as they get older, they get a little bit, more rice, that more rice spice comes out of it.
It's got like a delayed finish. Like now that it's sat in my mouth for a little bit, my mouth's starting to pop. It's like it was a little bit delayed. Mm-hmm. It's very good. I do like this. This is definitely different. It's not like a standard rye for sure.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of what's funny about our Merced rye. I think it changes people who are not fans of traditional rye. I feel like our rye is like like that. It can take a bourbon drinker and lean them into a little bit more of a rye because it drinks a little bit sweeter than a typical.
Yes. I was about to say it does not have the dill or grass notes you get on a lot of rye that are I don't like the ryes with the dill and the grass. Those are kind of my least favorite notes out of a rye, and
Yeah.
this doesn't have those at all. So this is definitely more my speed rye.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. We never ever, well, I can't say this now, but you know, that was a little bit of my worrisome too, because I don't like that dill um, and grass vegetal note of rye either. Typically,
Right.
I don't lean that way, and we never got those notes until I pulled a batch about a year and a half ago, and it, I keep really strict. We keep really strict farm records, and went back to this particular field where we pulled the rye from, and that was a heavier. We have this blow sand here, that really sandy fields that I discussed earlier. But if you go a couple miles, 3 to 5 miles east of us, the ground turns very clay and like black ground. It's real sticky. And so we had a field that was kind of in between and more of a loamy clay rather than a sandy loam. And it's funny, I did a batch of rye off that field, and 8 or 6.5, 7 years later, we pulled the barrels, and they had that sweet grassy note to them, which I'm not a fan of. So
Yeah.
it made me so irritated. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Back, and it wasn't we didn't do anything different. It literally was just the soil and how much rain that we got that year. That year we got a little, an extra amount of rain. Normally we get about 12 inches of rain here. We're really drought, here, but we ended up with 19 and a half, 20 inches of rain that year. And I picked it off that loamy clay field, and it literally changed the flavor profile of the whiskey, which is so weird. But something, and I've never experienced that because we don't own any fields of that character. This was a rented field. So it's something we have to make sure we note when we're planting grain.
Yeah, it's funny how much just the weather can affect the outcome, of your product. And it's just something as simple as that. Too much rain, not enough rain. So
too much
crazy.
Rain, different fertilizers.
Variables.
Yeah, there's so many variables, between the soil, the rain, the fertilizers you put, and that's also the cool thing about, when we see these small batches and how they differ, and now we're starting to see how, barrel categories change and, just from year to year, which is cool, as long as they're not too much where they're just like off-putting. But where this one particular batch was pretty off-putting to me personally, but we have people who like it. It's just
there's some people who love that flavor. It's just not me. I don't like dill and grassy. I like sweet and minty and some of those other notes you can get from rye, fruity, stuff like that. Brad said he just got back and thought I was dead. He was talking about when I was whenever I'm drinking, I put my head down. I'm just quiet because I'm trying to think about what I'm tasting. I really kind of focus in on it, and that's what he was talking about. And then David said, "I believe a Todd ascends to a higher plane of existence when drinking bourbon." So that's what it is. I kind of focus in. I get real quiet when I'm doing that.
For sure.
Jim, I did get your entry for the race. Okay. So Tracy, I did see your other comment about maybe we'll give out samples. I actually am. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. I got the giveaway tool set up. So you guys, if you're interested in getting a sample of each of these, we can go hashtag Corbin. So hashtag Corbin, and we're going to somebody's going to get to win a sample of the sour mash bourbon and the Merced 1917 rye. I'll give you guys a few minutes to enter that, and we'll pick a winner. So let's see. I had another question I wanted to ask. Let me find it here. Oh yeah. So, do you smoke cigars by chance? Are you a cigar smoker?
I mean, I do smoke them I don't like partake in like I go buy cigars, but I do like I like to have a cigar with whiskey, and usually my friends are bringing them over or whatever.
Yeah. I've been like last few months. I've really gotten into pairing whiskeys and cigars, and so I was going to ask: is there a specific cigar that pairs really well with your Merced Rye?
You know, there's one my buddy brings over these cohibas, and but I can't tell you exactly
Which one?
but they do. They just go. He's like, oh, this is the perfect cigar for this whiskey, and that's what we like. If we have a cigar, that's what it is. But it's Cohiba's the brand, but I'm not sure if like what the actual.
Yeah. Well, if you can find out, let me know because I'd like to do that pairing.
Well, I think I have one. If I have one at the house, I'll send you a picture of it and email it to you.
Yeah, that'll work. That'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm going to give you a few more minutes here to enter Corbin, #Corbin for the giveaway. And then if you want to get in on the race for the bags tonight, go ahead and send your super chats. So here's a good question. What's your favorite cocktail to make with your Merced Rye?
Well, I would say generally my go-to cocktail is with the 1917 is an old fashioned. Like that's my, that's my standard. Like just, I'm not a, sweet drinker. So I like, a lot of whiskey, but something, I'm trying to think of maybe something different is, I always love a whiskey sour too. But
I always use rye in my old fashions. I don't like to make old fashions with bourbon. It should I think old fashions should always have a rye.
Yeah,
you got to have that.
Go-to.
Yeah, you got to have that bite to come through the bitters.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I tend to lean towards bourbon in my Manhattans, and rye is always my old fashioned. But I like a rye Manhattan too. But I never do a bourbon old fashioned. Although my wife's favorite is a bourbon an old fashioned with the sour mash. She's more of a bourbon drinker, but I'm definitely more of a rye guy.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and run the giveaway for the samples here. I'm going to just let me share this screen, and we'll see who's going to get these sent out to them. Here we go, 19 entries. Poor decisions pairing. All right, congratulations, you've won. You get me your information so I can make sure you get those. And congratulations, you're going to enjoy these. These are very good. I especially like this rye. This rye is really good. All right, David. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you're still in the middle of your workday over there on the West Coast. We'll let you go, or if you want to stick around and watch the bag race and see what these guys do with that, that's up to you. But again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the samples. Excellent product. I'm hoping it makes it out here, sometime. Yeah. Especially, I'm interested in finding a single barrel of this rye. So,
and if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to us at tours at corbincash.com, and then I can send you online places. We also have a whiskey club, and so depending on what final states they agree on, we can ship to after the first of the year. We offer up to 20% discounts online through our own store. So
nice.
That'll be and then we do we also do, or we do discounts, or we can do free shipping. We try to see what works best for the customer. So
now, can they do that through your website, through corbincash.com? Or
yeah, so if you go on our
I did put the link at the top of the chat, guys. I pinned the link to their website at the top of the chat. So.
Yeah, And so if you go on our website, we have an online store, and so you can check out our whiskey club. We do, we have a spirits club, we have a whiskey club. They have different benefits, different discounts and stuff. But if you need something, trying to find something closer to home, we do have some online retailers like on the East Coast who do ship, which would, if it comes down to shipping costs, it might be cheaper to ship it from, Washington, D.C. versus California, depending on what state you're in. So, we can help you with that as well. So.
Yeah. And, we do barrel picks for our channel. We've done several that we sell, in our Whiskey Sippers barrel picks. So maybe at some point we can get a barrel pick with you guys. So
whenever you're ready, just let us know, and we'll put you in the queue. And then, we're, like I said, we got a bunch to bottle right now, but I mean, we could easily get something after the first of the year. So if you want to do something next year, just let us know. We'll be able to.
Yeah.
We have a ton of rye. Our bourbons, not so much. I don't have a lot of bourbon available, but I do have a ton of rye. So.
All right. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Last chance if you want to get in on the Whiskey Sippers Dilemma. I hope everybody had enjoyed listening to David. Very interesting, some of the stuff he was talking about. In my opinion, it was a little bit different. But yeah, so if you guys want to get in, last call before I go run this duck race. Let me go check the Venmo real quick. All right, so I'm going to go set up this race, guys, and we will run it. Jim, you're happy to get killer rye picks instead of bourbon. This Merced rye is actually really good. It is different. It's fruity, a little minty. It doesn't have any like grassy and dill notes. This is right up my alley for a rye, for sure. All right, I'm going to go fill out the duck race here real quick, guys. And somebody's going to get to play the Whiskey Sippers Dilemma. I know this is normally this is the dead space. I got to type all these names in. I will be leaving in the morning. I am going down to Jack Daniel's for the International Barbecue. Renee and I are heading out in the morning. Paul will be down there as well. And so we will have some footage from the Jack Daniel's International Barbecue coming up. I'll do some hunts along the way as well. So we'll have some footage shot this weekend. All right. So we got 14 entries. Paul says he'll get the punishment bag. Sweet potato filled grown rye. That's what they said, Sugar Kitty. And you know what? Maybe that is what makes a difference. It's got some real fruitiness to it. It was a little surprising. I wasn't expecting it until I got it on the nose. I got some berry, and then you get that fruity on the palate as well. It's pretty good. Going to be a good trip. Yeah, Paul, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. It's going to be hard. I always have a hard time sleeping the night before a trip like that because I'm just ready to. I want to go. I want to get to it. I want to hit the road. All right, so let me go ahead and share this screen. And somebody is going to face a dilemma. All right, I'm going to shuffle. 1, 2, 3 shuffles. Good luck, everybody. Pretty even right now. JD with a little bit of a lead. JD, you just won last week, didn't you? So I think you're pulling out a little too quick this time. Crafty taking the lead. Tracy with the Donald Trump duck. David falling behind. Tracy taking the lead. Tracy's coming on strong. A little too early. Oh, and here comes Alicia. Here comes, David, can he hold on? 15 seconds is a long time to sprint, David. Oh, wait. Oh, no, JD's coming back. Alicia Cantor is the winner. All right, Alicia, congratulations. You get to face the dilemma. I'm sure she's still on, David. I see you. I saw you comment, so I'm sure Alicia's still there. Congratulations, Alicia. So you know how it goes. Let's pick a bottle. I'm sorry, bag. A. So you pick A. Okay, so your pick is A. All right, so now I'm going to reveal one of the remaining bags. Bag D was a sample of Old Forester 117 series bottled in bond rye and a Remus Repeal 6, and that is now removed from the game. So you have a decision. Do you stick with A or do you take B or C? You got to face that dilemma. What's your gut say? What's your brain say? Keep it. All right. So this is what you did not win. You did not win bag B, which was a sample of Hardfill & Company Franken Whiskey, batch 4. River Hill bourbon, aged 12 months. You did not win the punishment pours. You also did not win bag C. Bag C was a sample of Weller Full Proof, a sample of Blanton's Gold, a sample of Stag 24C, a Buffalo Trace Flight, and a Macanudo, what is it called? Inspirado Orange. So that was the big prize tonight. So you got one of the middle prizes. So not bad. Better than punishment pours. You will win a sample of the Short Barrel Sopsquatch single barrel pick and a Toronto Silver Exodus cigar. So there you go. Better than winning the Franken whiskey. Trust me. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. I hope everybody had a good time listening to David. Thank him for joining again. And whatever links he sends me, I'll make sure I post out on Discord and on the Patreon and stuff like that. If he sends links to bottle shops or where you can buy the stuff. So, all right. You're welcome, Alicia, and I'm sure you'll send David over to pick up your winnings. And don't let him have any. It's for you, not him. All right, guys. So next week, I will not have a live stream. This will be the first time where I just don't have one at all. My daughter is getting married next week, so I'm just not going to be doing a live at all. But I will be back the week after that. Also, I want to say, if you haven't already, go look at Monday's video. There's a form to fill out, and there's a chance to win a travel humidor. It's a really nice travel humidor. But be paying attention next week, because next Monday, another video is dropping for a humidor review, and the prize for that one is fantastic. We have a company giving away a full cabinet humidor. So make sure next Monday you check out that video and enter for that giveaway. It's going to be a big one. Thank you, Donald. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a busy week. So my parents are coming in. My parents have been up here for quite a while. They live in Florida, so they're coming in. We're going to have the wedding. It's going to be a very busy week, so I'm just not going to be able to do a live. So, but I'll be back the week after. But yeah, you guys go enter for the giveaway for this week. Check out the video for next week. And, just remember, the best bourbon or whiskey is the one you like the most.